Well, good morning, and thank you for calling into this webinar around digitization and to see if this is an opportunity for profitability on your operation. I'm Ron Dunker, Head of Business Development. This webinar is being recorded, so it'll be sent out for review at a later date. So if there's something interesting that you learn on here, you can go back and review it. There will be some polling questions. We're going to have a little fun here, and as we go through this webinar, you can answer the polling questions in the chat. So with that, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for all your efforts thus far. I know it's a busy time of the year and appreciate you calling in to this webinar. And so it is really important not only to the world, but to us in the United States about everything that you're doing to get harvest in. And for those in the South, I know harvest is wrapping up and you're doing field work and all the other things and potentially preparing for another crop. So it's just can't thank you enough from all of us here at Oaken for what you do. So with that, we're going to jump right into it. Let me make sure this is sharing okay. And so with that, what do we do? So this webinar is about digitization as a competitive advantage, and I got on ChatGPT this morning and just looked at some different types of digitization that is occurring across in ag, and it's pretty significant, right? Anywhere from field planning to planting, which with digital mapping, right? Variable rate planning is another one. Software companies like John Deere Ops does a lot, at Granular. Some of these other large companies have a lot of digitization that helps on the farm. Satellite imagery, right? Well, satellite imagery is key to mapping and those sort of things. Drone scouting, infield sensors. Uh, AI crop monitoring. I'm sure a lot of you are already, doing some of this. Autonomous GPS. I'm sure that's pretty much a standard on your farms nowadays. Telematics systems, digital spray records, irrigation, digitization around irrigation, smart irrigation pivots, um, those sort of things in the finance area and input management. There's farm management software out there that helps you with, yield, costs, expenses, those sort of things. Input tracking apps, automated reporting out there that helps with field profitability, record keeping. All of this is on cloud storage. There's a lot of blockchain activity. So you can see there's a lot of information out there. And just let me go into, tell you what,
Hey,
yeah, was there a question?
sorry, Ron, that was me,
Yeah.
Cassie. I
Hey,
didn't realize
Cassie.
I wasn't on mute. All right.
Can you see that okay, Cassie?
Yep, I can.
All right. So, those are just a few of the, quite a few actually, and I'm sure there's others that I haven't talked about, but really what we're going to focus in on is what we're seeing across industry from what we do as a digitization company, and just share some best practices with you as well. So, with that, let's just talk about what Oaken is. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm head of business development. We have over 70 years of experience on our executive team, in different areas from SaaS platform development to fintech. And so we're a company that came out of Purdue University, and we have a host of customers across really the ag, I call it ecosystem, that utilize our technology. And what we do is digitizing of lease management. And if you notice, that really wasn't on that chat GPT this morning, that list I just went through, but that's what we do. But for the crux of this, discussion today, here's our first, polling question. I think I know the answer, but it's early in the morning and I wanted to see. So you can answer this in the chat. Do you apply digitization to your operation? And so any of those things that I just read off that list, is that a yes or a no? And I'm pretty much sure that everybody is going to say yes. Looks like a lot of yeses that are coming in there. And so, yeah, so everybody is using digitization across their operation. So, it's an extremely useful tool. It's an extremely successful tool that helps you with those with the digitization. So, with that, we're going to move on. So what's driving a lot of this and what's happening from a macro level across the globe? We're seeing this with the customers, we're working with, like I said, on the digitization of land management and leasing and those sort of things. But globally, farms are expected to transition in the next generation, right? We're seeing that right now. I call it the hidden disruptor that's happening within our industry. Sorry about that. Um, Happening within our industry. And so, what I was, and what we're seeing is that, um, you know, around the average age of the farmer is around 57, 58, 59. So farmers are getting older, so there's more consolidation that's happening in agriculture, but also we're seeing a large amount of land that's transitioning, whether that be, the number we have here is 40%, but as you think of the next 20 to 25 years, that could be, over half of the farmland is going to transition to new landowners, right? And is there what we're seeing is what does that transition look like when we have conversations with growers across the United States? It's like, how are we passing this information on, this important information on digitally to that next generation from a succession plan standpoint? You know, if you look at the USDA statistics, it's about 18 million acres a year that are transitioning in ranch and row crop farmland across the United States, and that's a lot. And like I said, I call that the hidden disruptor. So that's really the challenge is how we're doing that. And so, um, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play one of our customers about this customer is a farmer in Indiana, and they manage quite a few acres. And Cassie's going to talk about how when she came into the operation, what challenges she saw from that succession, that transition standpoint, and kind of some of the challenges that she experienced. So let me play this for you, hopefully.
So when I came to the farm over 18 years ago now, I wasn't managing our land partner relationships. I was actually managing our trucking fleet. So we had trucks all over the lower 48, and that was part of my job. We sold that business off back in 2012, and I moved into more of a people position, so handling all things people. Back then, we kind of handled our land partners as they were all like, I don't want to say given to me, but like, here's a bunch of file folders with all of our leases in them. And from there, we had an assistant at the time that just organized those into really great books. And so each land partner has, a binder. From there, we've moved to spreadsheets and so on and so forth. And now we have Oaken, which has been terrific on managing those land partners and all their data. But literally, when I first started, it was a file folder with the lease in it. Maybe the lease maybe was up to date, wasn't up to date, but certainly Oaken has turned the page on that and helped us with that.
So
So
you
when
can
I
see,
came to the
oops, sorry
farm
about that. Um,
over 18 years ago.
Let me go on with that. So you can see that, that's probably one example, and there's, hundreds and probably thousands of those same examples when you think about farm transitions, new individuals coming onto the farm. What we're seeing is that, we talked about that list of digitization. There's lots of work going on in equipment and mapping and, agronomy, but digitization across, important aspects of the operation to include, the land management, the lease management, there's just not a lot of work there. And we feel like, our technology is certainly kind of novel and really cutting edge in doing that because there's really nothing focused in on agriculture. But if we look at from different businesses, if we looked at kind of that was Cassie, that was a grower's perspective. I'm sure there are other, pain points or pinch points here, but what we're seeing in farm management, which is like, professional farm management with that vacant landowner becoming more and more prevalent on the land that is across the United States. We're just seeing, rapid growth in that division, in the farm management division, because those individuals still want to hold on to that land, but they need someone to manage that farm. So in farm management is certainly an aspect that we're seeing that. And these businesses are having issues with the way they're record keeping, the way they're managing their leases, the way they're managing those relationships. There's a lot of resources that are being applied to those areas, and there's really not a lot of digitization going on. Um, what the pain points are for those like farm managers who are managing land for vacant landowners, what the current systems are not scalable, right? And also when you come in and you have auditing and costs and the times associated with the digitization or with managing these leases, it's a real challenge to be able to find the information quickly. If you do need to audit or you are trying to reconcile, that is a very a large pinch point. And relationship management, right? I always say whether it's a grower, farm manager, even others in the agricultural environment, that there's really a challenge right now with being able to manage multiple relationships, and that goes for the farm management industry as well. Producers, exact same. We work with producers across. So we work with growers, we work with farm managers, we work with producers. And they're having some of these same issues with the transition of land, the new ownership of land, and there's this new leadership that's coming into these operations, whether it be farm managers. I mean, all of these bullet points can go across all these different areas in agriculture that I'm talking about, but leadership, you had Cassie stepping in as you saw, and the challenges she experienced. It's no different for farm management. It's no different for these producers. They're just trying to find out, how to where being able to understand the operation quickly, and the way, using paperwork and folders and files and files on your computer. Those days are really kind of gone, or moving away from those. Not that they didn't work in the past. It's just they don't have the ability to step in and hit the ground running quickly. And so increasing executive authority, increasing upstream scrutiny on supply chain. So, I did talk about one of the, digitization of blockchain. We see the ability to not only secure building space and the leasing and building space, but also to understand everything that kind of went on with that, digitizing that process and everything that went on in that production of that herd, or so on and so forth, or seed industry. We're going to talk about that next. Having that kind of light blockchain to say, okay, these are all the things that, all the expenses, all the inputs that went in, the type of feed, all that stuff being captured digitally. That is something that that is an increasing need across the agriculture. So the systems that they currently have, they're very heavy in labor, and there's kind of there's multiple steps to be able to have a control system that is repeatable and that is scalable. There's, whether it be a grower, a farm manager, a producer, retail, there is so much time on contracting. I think I read a recent report by Deloitte that said over across the globe, over $1.7 trillion are lost in contract management and not being able to, digitize that process. That's a huge number. We've seen over we expect the payments in agriculture, just on the grower side alone, to be over 35 billion dollars in payments every single year that are occurring in agriculture, and specifically the row crop, section of agriculture. So, there's a lot of money and a lot of opportunity for loss of money, if from a contract management standpoint. And then expansion and retaining existing relationships. What we're seeing across the industry is individuals who are either stepping into the growing, into their farming operation, or stepping into the farm management industry, or stepping into the producers. They are having a tough time of, you know, the new people that are coming in, the new talent that's coming in wants information at their fingertips. I always use the iPhone as a reference. They want that kind of information at their fingertips. And right now, there's a lot of that, from an agronomy standpoint, well, JD Ops, all that can be at your fingertips. But what we're not seeing across the industry is this area of contract lease management, that information not being at your fingertips. And there is a direct need for that. Okay. So moving on, ag retail, same thing, right? You have new employees stepping in and into controller roles, and being able to see the entire business, not only kind of the entire financial picture, which would include all the contract management. We also, in ag retail, we have the need for like seed industries to, I don't know if there's any seed industry folks on, but the seed industry is seeing um, the need for, like I said, this light blockchain to be able to track all the inputs that are on different, the growth of different seed, and being able to share that information with their customers in Japan, in China, in Europe, all those different areas, and that digitize that process. So it all kind of comes back to that contract on that land, and then the crop grown, all that can be captured digitally. So we're seeing that need, legacy business operations again, stepping into that, 21st century ability to grow and digitize, and be able to scale their business. We're seeing a direct reach out to us and all of other, across from a digitization process across the entire ag ecosystem, as I call it, a real need to focus in on this digitization process. I mean, if you think about, time lost, the time spent, the time it takes to train new employees on the information, and where to find the information. We're talking tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially that can be lost. And so the digitization process allows for those great efficiencies. Whether it be a grower or a seed company, missed payments, missed contract renewals means loss of business. There's another aspect. Auditing is huge. I don't know. We work with a lot of CPA companies that say, we go in, and when we, help growers or help industry with, auditing processes, we spend, you know, you know, hours and hours and hours and hours, ungodly amount of hours doing the auditing process. And that is an extreme amount of time, and there's an extreme amount of cost associated with that. Having that ability to be able to share digitally, specifically your land operations, your contracts, your expenses around those contracts, the payments that you've made, and how much, land you're controlling, certainly help with that auditing process for you, and it saves extreme amount of time, effort, and it just builds those better relationships. And then supply chain uncertainty, I touched on that, but there we have in our seed companies that we're working with, we're seeing that they need to digitize so that they can not only share what's been done on that particular lease and that crop that's been grown on that land lease, but they also need to make sure that they continue to, have those leases in order from a supply chain so they can grow the crop next year and so forth. So there's a lot of need from a digitization standpoint. So, what you can observe in farming operations. We've touched on this a little bit, but we're seeing five buckets here. Retirement is a huge aspect that is occurring in agriculture. Probably the number one item. Um, we just recently had a meeting with about 300 CPAs across Missouri and Nebraska, and they said this was their number one of their, was the top one or two issues that they're seeing is this generation's leaving, new generations are stepping in, and they're taking over this farming operation. So really, those first two, the retirement, new person stepping in, are really tied together. The next thing that where they're seeing across is acquisitions of operations. I mentioned earlier about consolidation. Um, we are seeing not only acquisitions in maybe the state or the county or three or four counties that particular grower is working in, but a digitization to save money, to build efficiencies, to have repeatable processes. We have also growers that are using digitization, and specifically from the contract lease management standpoint that we do, they're using it now and applying it to farms that they're buying out of state, three or four states away, 5 states away. I mean, this you could see how that would build in the efficiencies and farming transitions, right? Family transitions, excuse me. If there's not a solid transition plan with, the information being readily available for that next generation to come into, what's the impact? Impact could be that they have to sell the farm, which is not necessarily a good thing. And then we talked about expanding to new states. We talked a little bit about that. So that's what we're seeing. Those are kind of the top, the top reasons to digitize that we're seeing across, and all of those really tie back to scalability, time efficiencies, and money associated with that, and the money that you save. Labor costs. We're seeing the ability to digitize is those back office resources that you maybe currently have. We're seeing that digitization either allow those individuals to find maybe they're not needed or not needed full time, or maybe they're able to do something else from like we have CFOs that work, and they're able to work on other projects to help expand the business. So maybe it's applying their resources somewhere else that's making you more money. All right. So here are the things that I say we're seeing across. I'm curious of what you're seeing. So this poll question is, what are the major transitions that you're seeing on your operation? Is it the retirement piece that you kind of work with? New people stepping in? It could be two or three of these. Acquisitions of new operations, the family transitions. Is that an issue for you? What you're seeing, and does it, maybe you're expanding your operation, and those are the challenges. Some of the challenges that you're seeing. So I'll just give a few minutes. Like I said, um, when we worked with the accountants, it was retirement, and then acquisitions were their top ones as well. So let's see. In the chat, it looks like retirement's a big one. Family transitions is right up there as well. Acquisitions is third, it looks like. So that's pretty interesting. And then there's maybe one on expansion and one on new people stepping in. So it looks like retirement, acquisitions number two, family transitions, and then acquisitions of new operations, and then expansions. So interesting. All right. Well, thank you for that information. All right. So here's where we've talked some about it, but we've talked globally what's happening from a macro level with the land transfer and the hours that are spent tracking payments and contracts, and missing out on something is critical. As this particular person says, Cassie says here, that, if they miss out on, whether it be a grower to a someone in retail from a digitization standpoint, that could mean loss of the control of that land. That could mean a damaged relationship, and we know in our industry relationship is everything. Missing out on a payment. I've heard this throughout that with customers that we work with that are digitizing their contract lease management process. They say if I miss out on a payment, that's a bad day. That's a bad day for me. That's a bad day for my landowner that I'm working with. And we know that roughly, 50, 60% of land that growers lease are leasing for their operations, a lower entry point for them to expand their business rather than buying, and so forth. So, there's definitely a direct need here. So I'll build this out. Here's some different, leases, from another farmer in Indiana that we work with. We're an Indiana-based company. Leases are critical to our business. Here's a farm manager in Minnesota. We look to scale our business efficiently. We are spending countless hours making sure our contracts are managed well and we are able to communicate effectively with landowners, right? And that's something that, is going to be more challenging. And we hear that a lot is, I used to know, Mr. and Mrs. Smith on the farm. Well, they have since, either retired and moved to Florida or whatever has happened to them. And they want me to continue to share and communicate with them. Doing that digitally is extremely more effective. Or when that land transitions to the new landowners, now you've gone from the grower, and the landowners, one, I call it 1v2, the grower being one and the landowners being two. Now you go from 1v3, 4, 5, or 6. And these growers, now you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 growers. Now you've got all that information and all the payments and all the leasing and all that information has to go potentially to now 5, 6, 7 different people, right? How do you do that? The only way to truly do that is to digitize. And then hog operations. When I took over the role, leases were everywhere, not traceable, and we were sure if we wouldn't even pass our next audit. I mean, these are actual quotes from customers that we have worked with across there. And auditing is extremely important in retail and across the entire industry. Actually, being able to audit your processes and digitization certainly helps that. And so um, a lot of different needs. And I'm sure you probably have your own quote here that you could put together. But these are just some of them, the folks that we work with. So what is the cost, right? What are the costs, we talked, I mentioned earlier if you look at contract management, from a global perspective, we're talking almost $2 trillion, right, in potential losses that they're seeing in the ability to effectively manage contracts. I mentioned earlier in row crop in agriculture, we're looking at 30 to $35 billion every year that is occurring just in that one sector alone, just really on the grower side. And so, if we don't do the contract management, efficiently, and digitization, of course, allows that, you're going to potentially have loss of business for our CFOs and whatnot, compliance costs associated with that, not being able to, have a traceability of what's occurring on that particular lease. It could impact financials as well, not only compliance but financials as well. Having all of your leases in one place, all of your contracts in one place, and being able to see those certainly can not only affect your compliance costs, but it also can, from a financial standpoint, not give you a true picture. Productivity is huge. That's probably, one we hear over and over again is the ability to digitize helps with productivity across the board, whether it's who, the advisors individuals work with on farms, or whether it's the CPAs they work with, or whether it's a customer they're dealing with or landowner. Digitization, helps helps increase productivity exponentially. And I think I have a percentage on that. And business continuity challenges, right? The ability to take, your old systems, transfer it into a digitized system. That's why, you know, they digitized a lot of the agronomy efforts. A lot of that was on paper. They digitized a lot of the mechanical efforts that are occurring right now. My question to you is, and it's probably a polling question I should have asked, do you digitize, your contracts processes? And that's, to include your land. We're seeing more, not only land digitization, but the lease management on some of the equipment. We're helping consume some of that. Also, we talked a lot about, the retail side of things, helping with contract land management for security of production. So there's just a whole host of things that can be digitized when you start talking about contract and lease management. Business continuity challenges. I think this one's huge. I just had a conversation with a farm manager recently, and they had hired individuals to help with the contract management process. And um, what happened is that individual found another job and left, and now they have a big hole that they have to fill. And of course, lease season's going to start up here real shortly, and payments going to need to be made, and all those things. And this is a really huge challenge for them. If it's digitized, another person can come in, hit the ground running extremely fast, and understand where those contracts are, who those relationships are, how the payments were made, who they need to be made to, and the ability to streamline those operations. Okay. All right. Well, I think this is the last polling question, but of those, we just went through those risks. What are the area risks you see as most significant when contracts are not managed well? And you can answer those in the chat. Let's see what's coming in here. Business continuity is one. It's coming in. It looks like loss of business and acres is coming in. Looks like that's taking the lead here. Let's see who else. Reduced productivity. Okay, that one's coming in. And it looks like maybe compliance is the fourth one there, but I'm sure there's others that we haven't seen. But as you think about, digitization and profitability on your farm, and how it can directly correlate, as we think about farm economics, and really applying uh, you know, uh, tools or processes, or the ability to streamline and make your farms more efficient, that's real dollars back in your pocket. And so, yeah, it looks like it's loss of business is number one, and looks like productivity is two, continuity, and then compliance. Okay, interesting. All right, very good. Well, we'll move on. So this is the statistic I was referring to earlier. What we've seen as the percentage of high performing organizations who credit agreement management for positive performance. That's a high number, 77%. This came out of a Deloitte study across the globe, actually, around, what I think they surveyed over 1,400 different companies, and they found that the highest performing companies credited a lot of their processes, from digital signatures to digital signing processes to agreement management, as an increase in productivity by 77%. I think probably, I know I would take 77% in my job every single day, and I'm sure you would as well across your operation. Um, you know, basically how a lot of how all this broke out. The benefit of a contract relationship management system is fewer delays, right? I mean, just fewer delays on how many times have you waited for a signature or waited for the snail mail to get back and get information back to you, right? To make sure everything was go or knocked on someone's door, right? To help them with paperwork and sign paperwork, right? And those sort of things. Um, Outperformed risk metrics. So things that they found as a direct risk to their operation. The reports, came back in more fluid, came back into the operation quickly, and operations weren't disrupted in those particular metrics. So a huge increase in the ability to, from a performance standpoint. Fewer agreements out of compliance. I don't know if that's a huge issue for what we're doing in agriculture, but certainly on the more retail farm management side and those sort of things, an increase of over 21% in fewer agreements being out. And just this improved caseload is just the amount of time spent on just the actual physical times individuals had to touch a contract or an agreement. It just improved their overall caseload. I gave you an example of a grower that is using digitization and it's building inefficiencies and saving them money, but they also have other really uh, other successful parts of their business to include grain handling and those sort of things. And that CFO can concentrate now not on necessarily the contract lease management standpoint, but now they can contract on their grain handling operation, find new ways to make more money even there, right? So in a tough economy, it certainly helps to be able to, if something's going well, to be able to spend more time in that sector and have your employees, your resources spent in that time to help grow even that business. So it just improved caseload. So a lot of different benefits. I think this one's quite impressive. Um, just the ability when you digitize something, as you know, whether you've used it for your agronomy or maybe it's your irrigation system or it's your equipment digitization. I'm sure all of those things are relatable to you. When you look across from a contract management standpoint, the insights that you get, the intelligence that you get from being able to have those dashboard, views of the different contracts, what your expenditures are, who are the key players in relationships, having that all digitally this is still from that report. I mean, individuals are seeing a 75%, almost all of these are 75% or 70 plus percent increase in insights and intelligence. Agreement storage. This has been huge. I think Cassie talked about it earlier about, where it is, who categorizes, the ability to categorize, you know, that takes a lot of effort to do that manually or on your computer in Excel files and all those sort of things. Having a digitized process that brings files back into where they need to go and having the ability to store them digitally on a cloud or wherever and have that information at your fingertips, whether you're at the bank, whether you're at your insurance office, the FSA office, having that information at your fingertips is huge. That's almost a 75, probably 70% improvement. The renewal process, it goes seamlessly. I mean, I think everybody, if you looked at this, what I take out of this graph, if I could have at least 70 or 75% efficiencies in all of these, that's impressive. So from a renewal management standpoint, having a digitized process just streamlines it across the board, not only for you as a grower or someone who is implementing the renewal management process, but for the end user, which then leads into a customer experience, right? Everybody wants your customers or your landowners, or if you're in retail, it's the customers you're working with wherever they are on the globe. You want them to have an amazing experience, right? I always say it's the round the table experience that you used to have probably with the original landowners potentially. How do you create that? Doing that digitally, having them the ability for them to see everything that you're doing on that contract or that lease, whatever that is. Back to contracts, we help even consume solar contracts, having that in there. All the different contracts that are out there, we can help consume those as well. But having that customer experience is huge. You can see that's probably the biggest one, almost 80% or more. And then the review and risk evaluation, just allowing you to see at a moment's notice where you're at on your leases, how many, contracts, how many are out, how many are coming due. Just having that, that information at your fingertips is extremely valuable from a digitization process. So, in agribusiness, you guys all know this, the different types of leases. I won't go through that, but again, we're not only doing that, we're doing solar leases, water usage leases. There's just a whole. We talked about, building leases as well for, for the producers, digitization of that process. There's just that need across there. Like I said, nobody's really doing that. When I did Chat GPT, the lease contract management piece didn't come up, and I think we're novel in what we're doing here to help you to build inefficiencies in your farm, create better relationships with your landowners, save you money directly. I can share different stories of how that's shaving money. Hopefully I've shared some of those. And then really, I think the fourth piece is, digitization of processes to include lease contract management just makes your life easier. It has to do that and allows you to spend more time with your families and whatnot. So from a relationship standpoint, it's keeping that connectivity to the land, keeping that connectivity to the family, having the ability to segregate data, sort data, and locate that data quickly is extremely important. And so right now we hear kind of horror stories on I spent hours trying to find XYZ leases, or I spent XYZ payments. Having that information all at your fingertips is extremely important, and being able to find it quickly, because your time's important and the people you're trying to find that information for is time's important. And so it just creates so much more efficiency for you. And then task management from a compliance standpoint. There's different initiatives that are going on, whether the Z45 or the whatever initiatives, sustainability initiatives. You could just not necessarily. There's a lot of compliance around that, but just also from an auditing standpoint to have that information for your banks, for your insurance agents, your CPAs, having that information in there digitally just will completely enhance all that across your operation. So, oh, I lied. There's one more. Of the businesses, how many of them could use help managing contracts and leases? A is 10%, B is 10 to 30, C is 30 to 75, or D is greater than 75. So just put that in the chat. Give you a couple of minutes here. We're almost done here, but so it looks like, so how many could help managing contracts and leases? It looks like C is 30 to 75% could help. Um, Looks like next is B, and third is D, and fourth is 0 to 10%. So it looks like about, between, that's a pretty big number, right? To help managing contracts and leases. So C, 30 to 75. Interesting. Okay. All right. So here at Oaken, I haven't really talked about what we do particularly. We tried to really focus in on, digitization for your operation. But, we are a contract relations lease management platform for agribusiness. We help with all of those digitally, not relationships, all your contracts, all your payments and expenses, all of your tasks. We do that digitally across our platform. Like I said, we came out of Purdue University, and we're just seeing. It's exciting to see that this platform can help. Ultimately, what you want is a product that can help the growers' lives be more efficient, save money, and make their lives easier. And the digitization of this leasing process. This is something that there's been a lot of spend time digitizing AI and weed identifications and AI, working in AI and different aspects, and the digitization of monitoring equipment and all those aspects. But what we see across is there's not anything out there that digitizes the leasing process. There's different financial platforms that, will help as well. But the lease is basically where, manages everything, right? Where it starts and where it ends for operations, and that's the land, right? And applying digitization, I can't think of a more important place to apply digitization is that area of your operation, because like I said, that's where it starts and where it ends. And the digitization, we can help manage that 1v 4 5 and 6 relationship digitally. Our technology does that. We manage every single contract that you saw, from crop share to custom, all those different lease types, and we can do invoicing as well. But what you see there is we can manage all that. We're, like I said, we're doing water contract leases. We're doing solar leases, all the different kinds of leases that are out there, and in impact agriculture. We can help manage those leases for your operation. Like I said, payments and expenses, we help you with all of those, making those payments, making sure the contracts renewed on time. Like I said, remember when I talked about missing a contract is extremely a bad day. That's a quote from a grower that we work with, and making sure that you make those payments, make those see the expenses associated with that, making sure you can share those expenses with the landowner that you're working with. Extremely important. And our system also creates all those tasks, whether they be from the lease, whether they be from the payments and expenses and contracts, and also other leases that are important, or other tasks that are important on your farm, to include, maybe it's, setting up time with your accountant, or maybe it's, and we all get busy doing multiple things. Well, our technology will also remind you, hey, you have a meeting with your accountant on this date. You have a meeting with your financial advisor on this date. And so there's just a lot of different things that our technology can do digitally for your operation. So we talked about this, but it tracks all your communications with individuals you have. So from an auditing perspective, it keeps track of, who touched what contracts last, who took a note here or there, who called in. It says who did that in your operation, so you can go back. Not only do you have a record of it in the system, but you can go back and ask specifics to that individual that took that note or touched that document. It shows that. It organizes your landowner data. We talked a lot about that, from expenses to all the work that you're doing on their farm. And you can also share that with them. So you can share all the leases that you have with those landowners, all the expenses, all the payments that you've made, all the improvements that you made. Maybe it's those other contracts, or maybe it's sustainability initiatives or conservation initiatives. Maybe you tiled the field or whatever it was. You put all that into Oaken, and then that landowner can look at that information wherever they are on the globe at any time and be able to see exactly what you're doing on their land. And it builds a high level of trust for you. Again, keeps track of all your rent payments, or, all your contract payments. And all this contract, like I said, can be shared with your landowner. Well, with that, we appreciate your time. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully, we wanted to share some of the things that we were seeing in digitization, and if it, could be profitable for your operation. And I'll end where I left off. Uh, Thank you for your time today. And if you want to book a demo, you can, look us up on the web at oaken.ag, and we can book a demo. We'd love to do that. And so we can help in a lot of different ways around contract and lease management. And we'd love to learn about your operation. But like I said, I'll end where I started, and just can't thank you enough for all that you're doing out there. Continue to have a finish harvest safely, and hopefully it's extremely successful. So thanks for your time today. Have a great day.